Have you ever woken up one morning, looked in the mirror, and realized the reflection staring back at you feels like a stranger? Someone whose life has slipped away, quietly overtaken by the endless demands of others. For many aging parents, this haunting sensation creeps in as their days begin to orbit entirely around the wants and needs of their children. It's a natural instinct to want to be there for them as you grow older, to lend a hand when they stumble, to stay woven into the fabric of their lives. But what happens when that noble desire blurs into something else? When the line between being a supportive parent and becoming a servant in your own twilight years vanishes beneath the weight of expectation? Too many seniors unknowingly tumble into this trap, sacrificing their time, their energy, and even their hard-earned peace until they're left wondering where their own lives went. But here's the spark of hope amidst the shadows. It doesn't have to end that way. You can remain a loving, devoted parent without surrendering your independence, your dignity, or the life you've spent decades building. In this journey we're about to embark on together, we'll uncover 6 powerful strategies to reclaim your freedom in old age. Tools to ensure you don't become a captive to your children's needs. From carving out unshakable boundaries to safeguarding your financial and emotional well-being, these steps will empower you to live on your own terms while nurturing healthy, meaningful connections with your family. So settle in, because what we're about to share might just rewrite the story of your later years. Let's dive into the first strategy: setting clear boundaries. Picture this: a life where every phone call from your children pulls you away from your own plans, where guilt gnaws at you the moment you dare to utter the word no. It's a trap many older parents fall into, believing their role as a provider is an eternal vow. You've raised your children, poured your heart into giving them wings to fly, guided them into adulthood with love and care. But does that mean your golden years must now bend to their every whim? Absolutely not. If you find yourself perpetually at their beck and call, rearranging your days to suit their schedules, shouldering their burden while your own dreams gather dust, it's time to draw a line in the sand. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect, and that includes honoring your time, your energy, and the personal space you've earned. This isn't about slamming doors or turning cold. It's about declaring that your needs carry equal weight. Take Robert, a 72-year-old father with a mop of silver hair and a quiet strength etched into his weathered hands. For years, he'd been the go-to babysitter for his grandchildren, spending 5 days a week chasing after little feet and wiping sticky fingers. At first, it was a joy. Those bright giggles and tiny hugs warmed his heart. But as months turned into years, Robert noticed a hollow ache growing inside him. His mornings, once spent sipping coffee on the porch with a book in hand, had vanished. His evenings, once reserved for stargazing or tinkering in his shed, were now a blur of diaper changes and bedtime stories. He loved his family, but he'd lost himself in the process. One crisp autumn day, he sat his children down, his voice steady but kind. "I need some time for me," he said, setting a limit, 2 days a week instead of 5. The shift wasn't easy. His children blinked in surprise, accustomed to his endless availability. But then something remarkable unfolded. They adjusted. They hired a part-time nanny, leaned on other support, and Robert reclaimed his mornings and evenings. His bond with his family didn't fray. It grew stronger, rooted now in respect rather than obligation. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're a lifeline. They teach your children that you're not an endless well, and in doing so, you preserve the love that binds you. Next, let's talk about prioritizing your own financial security, a cornerstone of independence that too many parents let crumble. Imagine decades of hard work, of scrimping and saving, all unraveling because you couldn't say no to a child's outstretched hand. It's a story that plays out too often. Seniors dipping into retirement funds to bail out a struggling son, co-signing loans for a daughter's dream house, or handing over chunks of savings out of love or guilt. But here's the cold, unshakable truth. Once that money is gone, it's not coming back. Retirement isn't a dress rehearsal. It's your time to savor the fruits of your labor, to travel, to rest, to chase the dreams you deferred. Yet countless older parents find themselves scraping by, their nest eggs cracked open not for their own joy, but to cushion their children's lives. Consider Harold, a 74-year-old man with a wiry frame and a voice that still carried the authority of his days as a factory foreman. For years, he'd been his son's safety net, writing checks to cover overdue bills, car repairs, and reckless ventures that never panned out. Each time, his son swore it was the last, promising repayment with earnest eyes. But the money never returned, and Harold's savings dwindled like sand through his fingers. One stormy night, staring at a bank statement that mocked his years of toil, he saw the precipice he teetered on. His son was 42, old enough to fend for himself. With a heavy heart, Harold made a choice. No more, he told his son, the words tasting bitter but necessary. The fallout was tense. His son bristled, wounded by the sudden cutoff. But then slowly the tide turned. His son took a second job, budgeted fiercely, and stood taller for it. Harold, meanwhile, rebuilt his financial walls, ensuring his own roof stayed over his head. Helping your children is a gift, not a duty. Before you give, ask yourself, can I afford this? Are they learning to rely on me instead of themselves? Your security isn't negotiable. Guard it fiercely because no one else will. Now let's shift to the third strategy, maintaining your own life and interests. Imagine your world shrinking day by day until it fits neatly into the palm of your children's hands. It starts innocently, canceling a lunch with friends to run an errand for your daughter, skipping a painting class to babysit your grandson. Soon your passions, those threads of joy that once defined you, fade into the background, replaced by an identity tethered solely to parent. But you are more than that. Before your children arrived, you had dreams, hobbies, friendships that lit up your soul. Those pieces of you don't expire with age. They're yours to reclaim. Take Edward, a 76-year-old retired teacher with a mop of white hair and hands that still remembered the feel of sanded wood. Woodworking had been his sanctuary, crafting tables and chairs in his garage, the scent of pine dust a quiet comfort. When his daughter had her first child, Edward leapt in, eager to help. Days spent with his grandson were a treasure, building block towers, reading tales of dragons. But over time, those days stretched into weeks, then years. His tools gathered rust, his workshop silent. He didn't notice the loss until a friend dragged him back to the garage, pressing a chisel into his hand. As he carved, something reignited, a spark of purpose, of Edward, not just Grandpa. He set limits with his daughter, carved out time for his craft, and soon found a community of woodworkers who welcomed him like an old friend. His life bloomed again, vibrant and his own. Your children have their paths. Don't let yours vanish in their shadow. Whether it's gardening, traveling, or simply sipping tea with a neighbor, hold fast to what makes you you. A rich old age isn't about waiting to be needed. It's about thriving in your own light. Let's move to the fourth strategy, teaching self-reliance instead of dependence. Imagine a bird endlessly hovering over its grown fledglings, dropping worms into their mouths long after they've sprouted wings. It's a tender image, but a flawed one. One of the greatest gifts you can offer your children is the strength to soar on their own. Yet too many parents keep swooping in, solving problems and softening falls well into their kids' adulthood. It feels like love, shielding them from life's sharp edges, but it can quietly erode their resilience and your own peace. Are you truly helping, or are you enabling a cycle where they lean on you instead of standing tall? Meet Frank, a 70-year-old father with a gravelly laugh and a spine still straight from years hauling lumber. His son, now in his 40s, had always been a dreamer, chasing big ideas that crumbled under shaky planning. Each collapse brought a call to Frank. A plea for cash, a shoulder to cry on, a fix for the mess. Frank obliged, pulling out his checkbook or rolling up his sleeves, convinced it was his duty. But the calls never stopped, and Frank's days grew heavy with exhaustion. One evening, nursing a beer on his porch, he saw it clearly. He wasn't lifting his son up, he was holding him back. The next plea came, and Frank paused, then said, "You've got this, son. Figure it out." Silence crackled over the line, then frustration. But Frank held firm. Weeks later, his son stumbled, then stood. He took odd jobs, faced his debts, and learned the grit Frank had always hoped he'd find. Their talk shifted, no longer rescues, but real conversations. Frank's load lightened, and his son grew stronger. Support your children with wisdom, not crutches. Let them trip, let them rise. They're adults now, and you've earned the right to step back. Now onto the fifth strategy, establishing emotional independence. Picture a heart tethered to a phone that rarely rings, a mood that sways with every canceled visit or forgotten "I love you." For many older parents, their children become the barometer of their worth. Each call, a burst of sunshine, each silence, a storm cloud. But here's the piercing truth. Your happiness can't live in someone else's hands. Loving your family is natural, but hinging your joy on their attention is a fragile thread to cling to. Your children are busy, swamped with games, kids, lives of their own. And while they may cherish you, they can't be your sole anchor. Take Eleanor, a 73-year-old woman with warm brown eyes and a laugh that once filled the rooms. She'd built her days around her son, waiting for his calls, planning her weeks around his rare visits. When he canceled, her heart sank. When he forgot her birthday, she wilted, feeling invisible. Years passed in that quiet ache until a friend pulled her aside at a church potluck. "You're more than this," she said, handing Eleanor a flyer for a book club. Hesitant, Eleanor went, then kept going. She joined a gardening group, rediscovered her love for watercolor, and filled her calendar with coffee dates and laughter. Her son still called, sometimes late, but now it was a bonus, not her lifeline. She glowed again, steady in her own skin, and her son noticed. Visits grew warmer, unburdened by her unspoken need. Build your joy from within. Friends, passions, the small victories of a day well lived. Your value isn't measured by their attention. It's forged in the life you choose to create. Finally, the sixth strategy, protecting your peace by mastering the art of no. Imagine your life as a garden, lush, tended with care, but trampled by every request that wanders in. Too many parents feel bound to say yes, to babysit at a moment's notice, to lend money they can't spare, to twist their days into knots for their children's convenience. But you're not an endless spring, and your tranquility isn't a bargaining chip. Setting boundaries isn't a rejection of love. It's a declaration of your worth, a shield for the peace you've earned. Consider George, a 78-year-old man with a shock of gray hair and a smile that crinkled his eyes. For years, he'd been the family fixer, loans for his daughter's renovations, last-minute moves for his son, grandkid duty whenever a call came. His kindness was legendary, but it came at a cost. His days blurred into obligations, his savings thinned, and a quiet resentment simmered beneath his grin. One summer morning, watching the sunrise he'd missed for months, he decided enough was enough. "I can't this time," he told his daughter when she asked for another loan. "I'm busy," he said to his son's moving plea. The words felt foreign, but they grew easier. His children blinked, then adapted, finding babysitters, balancing their own budgets. George reclaimed his garden, literal and figurative, tending roses and sipping tea in the stillness. His family still came, but now on terms that honored him too. No isn't a wall, it's a gate, letting in what nurtures you while guarding what's yours. You've given decades, now give yourself permission to rest. As we close this journey, let these final thoughts settle in your bones. Your life isn't a footnote to everyone else's story. You've spent years, decades pouring yourself into your family, lifting them up, smoothing their paths. But now, in this chapter, it's your turn to stand center stage. This isn't about abandoning your children or shirking love. It's about balance. Cherish them, guide them, but don't let their needs eclipse your own. The 6 strategies we've explored: boundaries, financial security, personal passions, self-reliance, emotional strength, and peace are your roadmap to a vibrant old age. Reflect on them. Where do you need to shift? Are you guarding your time, your heart, your dreams? Share your thoughts below. What struck you? What will you carry forward? Your voice matters to us, fueling this space where wisdom grows. If this stirred you, subscribe, share. Let's keep building this community of inspiration. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next chapter.